Hi YouTube, welcome to my very first upload. This is kind of nerve-wracking because this is a lot of personal information that I'm putting out there, but that's okay. This is a learning process for me, so please bear with me. I am trying to work on the quality so that I can provide the best content for you guys. My name is Lizzy, and today I am going to be showing you guys how I do my overview for my monthly budget. So this pay period included September 15th through October 12th. I decided to take a little bit of time to explain my setup I have going on. I like to divide it up into 3 sections, which include paycheck number 1, paycheck number 2, and my variable expenses. The first column that I have of numbers are my budgeted. The second column I use are my actual numbers that I round up to the nearest dollar. So for me, I like to do something called a $2,000 budget. And that just works personally for me because my checks are typically always over $1,000, and whatever is over, I typically save and put it towards one of my goals. So that's why I like to do a $2,000 budget, and whatever's extra, I just save it. So these bills almost never change. They're pretty much fixed bills. Every once in a while they will change. That's why I just kind of keep them separated and have a second column for the actual amount, just because, you know, like Excel, it's not always the same, but it's usually in the same price range. So the things that I do for variable include gas, and I do always budget out $100 no matter what. And that's just because I do drive a Jeep, and the gas is not the best, and it's not the cheapest either. The second thing that I have in my categories are savings. So the minimum amount that I will save every single month is $250. For groceries, I set aside $25, and you might think this is low, but for me it works. And the reason why it works for me is because I personally do not pay for the groceries in my household. I just do oh, hey, can you pick up some bread on your way home? Or hey, we ran out of cheese. Or that's why it's kind of low, but that's the reason why. My fiance buys the groceries. My next category I have is munchies, and I set aside $80. And this is for anything like going out to eat, you know, at the gas station, I want to pick up some candy, just little things like that. And I kind of have this high for a reason because I never know when I am going to be lazy and not want to cook. So I always want to be prepared that if it's like a lazy month, that I have planned to eat out quite a bit. The last category I have is miscellaneous. And like I mentioned, I like to do a $2,000 budget. So after, you know, I budget for all my bills, my gas, my groceries, my savings, and all that other good stuff, whatever's left just automatically goes into miscellaneous. So for example, this month is fairly decent. It's like at $87. And then there's going to be some months where it's going to be over, you know, hundreds of dollars because some of those bills just don't hit within that particular pay period. But for me, since my goal is to save, the less money I pull out of miscellaneous, the more that I can put towards my saving goals. So it's more of like me being disciplined enough to not spend that money so I can put it towards something that I want to save for. Let's start closing out the budget for this month. So the first thing that you see me doing is bubbling out the rent for $650 and coloring it in red. The reason why I do this is because I went over and I want it to stand out. And so when I go to do my budget for next month, I can look and say, hey, rent is kind of going up right now. Let me be prepared and maybe do an extra $5 on rent. So for most of my transactions, I use with my debit card. I'm not a real big fan of cash, so for me, it's easier to just, you know, swipe my debit card and then just keep track of stuff separately. So as you see on the next page over, I have different categories. So whenever I spend something from my gas, I will write it in and then keep like a running total. So when it comes to actually closing out my budget, I can just fill it in. So that's what I'm doing here. I spent, a total of $30 in gas. I wasn't driving that much and I went out of town. So thankfully, I only had to fill up once and it actually cost me $30. I don't think I ever spent less than like $45 when it comes to gas. So that was pretty exciting for me. So now I'm going on to completing my transaction log since I forgot my money book going on my little mini vacation. I was a little bit behind on that. So that's what I'm just doing real quick is I'm just filling out everything so that everything can be accurate. And what I like to do on this page is on the last column, you see it's titled left. I use this to see how much money do I have left from my checks. And I like to do this versus looking at my bank account because my bank account has a fairly large buffer and I don't want to start touching into that money because it's there. My goal right now is just to continue to build my buffer, and that's something I just don't want to touch. So I just kind of leave that alone. And so for me, writing down how much is exactly left from my paycheck helps me stay on track a lot more than if I were to just kind of use the app my bank provides to keep track. Watching this over again really, really, really cracks me up because I was so shocked or stunned, I should say. Like, how the heck am I going to do this math in my head? I don't even have my phone with me. And then it hit me that, well, you're filming the video. That's where your phone is, so you need to go find another calculator. So my fiance was actually taking a nap, so I stole his phone and did all the math because I cannot do those type of numbers in my head. The total amount I had left over after all my transactions came out to $487. So with that being said, that is the amount I have to put towards all my saving goals. If you follow me on IG, you would have known I had a goal of $500 and I was shy $13, but overall pretty satisfied that I was still able to save over my minimum goal of $250. I exceeded my savings goal. I'm actually just bubbling it and coloring it green. Since I did achieve it, I don't view it as a negative thing since I went over. That's why I chose to color it in green, whereas my rent, I only budgeted $610 and I was over $5, and so that's why that is red. So my final numbers came out to be $621 for my variable expenses and $1,463 for my fixed expenses. So onto my actual overview setup page. I have it broken down to a couple different categories that I like to focus on for that particular month. And usually I like to do what is my current credit score, but the way the pay period fell, it hadn't been released yet, so that's why in place of the credit score, I put in no spend days. So the amount of no spend days I had was not that many, but it was something at least, and I had a total of 12 days. So I was having a really hard time trying to figure out where I wanted all my money to go, and since it wasn't a large amount that I had left over, I decided to put everything towards my online savings. And those are just accounts that I have that have larger end goals. For example, I want to buy a house, I'm moving to Texas, I want to modify my Jeep, I want to build an emergency fund, and as well, I want to start planning for my wedding. So I just went ahead and distribute that money out to those different categories instead of dealing with the hassle of pulling out the cash. At the end of the month, I always like to update the amount that I have in my envelopes, and so that's what you see me doing here is I'm just counting out my money to make sure everything is where it's supposed to be. There is a couple of envelopes that are completely empty, but they actually have money. I just have to pull it back out. It got put into my fiance's account. Things got a little hectic on the way to the airport, so you will see me count actually $0, but there's actually some money within those categories. Besides not actually saving a large amount this month, the reason why I decided also to not stuff these envelopes is because my bank is all the way in Texas, and I do live in Colorado, so trying to pull money out can be a little difficult sometimes. So I just made it easier on myself to just make it zero. There's still plenty of money within each category if I do have to spend it. So $0 for every category this month is perfectly fine with me. So the last two things that I have on my overview page that I need to fill out, but I didn't because of course I was using my phone to film and I did not write down any of the information beforehand. So for my balances, I won't disclose, period. That's just for me to keep track of how much is in my checking, savings, and my cash envelopes. I will disclose that I do owe $16,320.90 on my Jeep. If you made it this far through the video, I want to thank you guys so much for watching my very first upload. It was kind of nerve-wracking, but I will slowly get more comfortable and become more natural at this. I do appreciate you guys. Thank you so much, and I do plan on uploading my next video of my new month's budget setup.